You're already 37 and still single. Must be tough spending New Year's alone. My sister Brianna sneered loud enough for the whole table to hear, her voice cutting through the clinking of silverware like a jagged blade. She leaned back, basking in the silence she'd just created, a smug smile plastered on her face. I set my glass down slowly, the condensation cold against my palm, and looked her straight in the eye. "Don't worry about me, Brianna," I said, my voice as steady as a surgeon's hand. "I've been married for a long time." My mother froze mid-toast, her champagne glass trembling just enough to make the bubbles dance. The entire room went silent, a heavy, suffocating kind of quiet, as if the air itself had been sucked out of the restaurant. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Like you're just a background character in someone else's highlight reel? Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I didn't flinch when the table erupted into a chorus of confused whispers. For 37 years, I've been the spare in the Cahill family, the background noise to Brianna's high-definition life. While she was marrying Brandon at 24 in a wedding that looked like a Pinterest board, I was pulling 36-hour shifts in a trauma center, while she was posting photos of her two photogenic children in their matching organic cotton outfits. I was staring at brain scans, trying to find the flickering line between life and death for patients who couldn't even remember their own names. My parents, Gary and Susan, built a small, carefully manicured world and then decided that anything outside of it didn't exist. To them, if a life isn't measurable in likes, suburban square footage, or grandkid photos, it's a failure. I was the physician researcher, the woman who married her career because she couldn't find a man to tolerate her schedule. I became the cautionary tale, the 40-year-old warning label they used to make Brianna feel better about her own choices. I watched her lean into Brandon's shoulder with that practiced look of sympathy, the kind of contempt that dresses up as concern. She thought she knew my life because she'd already framed it in her mind. Lonely, sterile, and empty. But Brianna has spent so long staring at her own reflection that she's forgotten other people have shadows too. The truth is, I stopped sharing my world with them years ago. Not because I was ashamed, but because I realized my life was too big for their yardstick. Every time I mentioned a breakthrough or a fellowship, it was met with a, "That's nice, dear," before the conversation swung back to Brianna's kitchen remodel. My success was a footnote. Her mundane life was the headline. Looking at my mother, whose face was still a mask of pure shock, I saw the gears turning. She was realizing that for 8 years, I had been living a reality that didn't include them. I wasn't just a daughter who was too busy to visit. I was a woman who had built a sanctuary they weren't invited to. My silence wasn't a secret. It was a boundary. Brianna's laugh was a reflex, the sound of someone who hadn't yet realized the ground beneath her feet had turned into a fault line. "That's not funny, Chloe," she said, clutching her wine glass. "You don't just wake up married after 8 years. Marriage requires a ceremony, a registry, a social media announcement." I didn't argue. I simply pulled my phone from my clutch and slid it across the white tablecloth. The screen glowed with a candid shot of me and a man standing on a rugged cliffside in the Scottish Highlands. I was laughing, not the polite, weary smile I wore at these dinners, but a look of pure, unadulterated joy. Beside me stood Justin. The table went so quiet I could hear the hum of the restaurant's ventilation system. My father, Gary, put down his fork with a deliberate clink. My mother leaned in, her eyes squinting at the screen. "Is that Justin Vance?" she whispered, her voice cracking. I nodded slowly. 8 years in March. We had 11 people there. No performance, no invitations for people who only want to measure the catering costs. Just us. Brianna snatched the phone, her knuckles turning white. She scrolled through the gallery like she was looking for a glitch in a simulation. She saw us at a charity gala in Manhattan. Me in an emerald silk dress. Justin's hand possessively on the small of my back. "This is fake," Brianna hissed, though her eyes were darting around in a panic. "You're making this up. Why would you hide this?" I looked at my father, then my mother, and finally back at her. "Because for years, I've been the silent builder in this family," I said, my voice dropping an octave into a cold, clinical tone. "When Dad needed that hip replacement last year, and the anonymous donor covered the $60,000 gap that insurance wouldn't touch, that was Justin's foundation. When your boutique was failing 3 years ago, and a private equity firm suddenly offered you a low-interest lifeline, that was me, Brianna. I've been footing the bill for your version of a perfect life, while you used my perceived loneliness as a punchline." Instead of an apology, Brianna's face contort. She wasn't feeling guilty. She was feeling hunted. "Oh, please," she spat, her voice trembling with a forced, brittle bravado. "So you married a rich man? You've spent 8 years lying to your own flesh and blood. How selfish can one person be?" My father found his voice, and it was cold. "She's right, Chloe. If you had this kind of resource, why would you let us worry? Brianna saw the opening and waved over a man standing near the bar. Actually, she said, a wicked glint returning to her eyes. It's a good thing we're all here. This is Marcus. He's looking for an investor. And I told him Chloe was single and looking for guidance. Marcus sat down right next to me, smelling of expensive cologne and cheap desperation. I felt a vibration in my pocket. A text from Justin. I'm watching the feed, Chloe. The audacity is staggering. Ready for the data I just sent? I looked at Brianna, who was smirking. She thought this was a game of social status. She didn't realize that in my world, we work with facts. And the facts I just received about Brianna's perfect lifestyle were about to burn her world to the ground. You know, Brianna, I said, ignoring Marcus. I used to wonder, Taisao. You hated my career so much. Then I realized, my work is about fixing broken things. And you? You only know how to break them. I pulled a tablet from my bag. Let's talk your boutique, Brianna. And why Brandon's firm is actually under investigation for embezzlement. Brandon's face drained of color. I swiped to the next document, a forensic audit of the Cahill Family Trust Fund. Let's talk about the $400,000 that went missing from Grandma's estate last June, I said, my voice cutting like a scalpel. The money earmarked for my research. The money that suddenly appeared in Brianna's boutique account. My mother's glass hit the floor. I'm saying your golden daughter is a thief, Mom. She forged my signature on the withdrawal slips. She thought I was too busy saving lives to notice a bank account I rarely checked. You can't prove that, Brandon stammered. I leaned forward. Justin's legal team spent the last 48 hours tracing the IP addresses for the transfers. They lead back to your home office. This is a felony. I told the table that my attorney had already drafted the formal notice. They had 24 hours to initiate a full repayment plan, or the police report would be filed by Monday morning. The manager of the restaurant suddenly appeared. He bowed toward me. Mrs. Vance, he said, and the name hung in the air like a gavel strike. Mr. Vance is waiting in the car. He's seen the security footage. Should we escort these individuals out? Or have the authorities handle the transition? That won't be necessary, I said. We're finished here. I walked past them, my heels clicking on the marble floor with a steady, rhythmic pulse. I stepped out into the Chicago night, where the cold air hit my face like a clean slate. Justin was standing by the car and pulled me into the warmth of his side. How do you feel? He asked. I looked at the city lights. Like I've been holding my breath for 37 years, I said, and I just took my first real gulp of air. I opened the family group chat and hit delete and exit. Happiness isn't something you have to prove with a photo. It's the quiet peace of knowing exactly who you are when the cameras are off. If you've ever been the one left out of the frame, remember, you're the one holding the camera. You decide what's worth capturing. If this story reminded you of your own worth, hit that like button and share it. You are not a footnote in anyone else's story. You are the author of your own. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You're wondering why Chloe waited 8 long years to drop the hammer. You're frustrated that she spent $60,000 on her father's surgery while they treated her like an outcast. It feels like she was being a doormat, right? But before you judge her, let's look at the psychological trap that nearly cost her everything. In psychology, we call this the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. Toxic families like the Cahills are masters at this. They don't mistreat you every single second. They give you just enough crumbs of hope, a birthday card here, a thumbs up emoji there, to keep you pulling the lever. Chloe wasn't being weak. She was addicted to the hope that one day, they would finally see her value. She was playing a rigged game, hoping for a jackpot of love that was never going to drop. But Chloe did something brilliant that most people miss. She shifted from emotional hope to financial self-defense. Let's break down her street-smart moves. First, look at the audit strategy. While Brianna was busy playing the successful boutique owner on social media, Chloe was quietly gathering data. Scammers and toxic manipulators thrive in the fog. They hate details. By running a forensic audit on the family trust, Chloe took the emotion out of the fight and replaced it with cold, hard numbers. She didn't argue about feelings. She argued about $400,000 and forged signatures. When you deal with toxic people, stop talking about how they hurt you and start talking about what they owe you. Second, notice the buyout. Chloe didn't just walk away. She invested in her freedom. By giving Brianna 24 hours to pay up or face the police, she wasn't just being nice. She was setting a price on her peace of mind. Sometimes, you have to realize that the money you've lost to toxic people is actually the tuition fee for your graduation from their drama. Finally, she practiced information asymmetry. She knew everything about their finances, but they knew nothing about her marriage to Justin. She built her fortress in silence. In the real world, your best defense is a life that your enemies can't measure. The verdict? Your self-worth is not a balance sheet that your family gets to audit. If they can't appreciate the silent builder in the room, they don't deserve to live in the house you've created. Have you ever had to audit a relationship and realize you were overinvested in a sinking ship? Drop your story in the comments. We're building a community of people who are done being footnotes. Hit that subscribe button to keep your mind sharp and your boundaries sharper. You're the CEO of your own life. Don't let anyone else handle the books.